All right, so back for another one, and the topic of today's video is going to be why men no longer want to work. And I think it's funny because I used to see, I don't know if I've seen an article recently, but I used to see these articles that, something like 7.1 million men drop out of the workforce. Where have they gone? And there was kind of this trope going around that these guys were all kind of, sitting at home not working, which is kind of funny in the sense that, like, if that was an option, I would probably definitely do that, but I still have to pay rent. So maybe there's a percentage of these guys that figured out how to milk the welfare system, or maybe they're living at their parents' house or what have you, where they have a little bit lower rent where they can make that happen. But I'm going to tell you guys a few stories just from my experience, because so this was right before COVID hit. I got laid off and I was on unemployment for a little bit there. And the total amount of money I got from unemployment was $1,600 a month. That was after tax, which, yeah, I think that part's hilarious too, because when you get unemployment, they ask if you want to take the whole sum or pay the tax on it. And obviously I just had them take it out because I didn't want to owe them anything after. And so it was $1,600 a month, which was just enough money to cover my rent. So I actually couldn't technically live on unemployment as a sole source of income. And that's the part that I always think is hilarious, because these people make it sound like fucking unemployment just pays you enough to live comfortably. I actually had to do what you're not supposed to do, which is accrue money elsewhere while collecting unemployment, and that was the only way that I could survive. And I wish it wasn't that way, but you got to do what you got to do. But I want to just shed some light on this Scooby-Doo mystery, the Sherlock Holmes mystery of where the men have gone, because I think I'm part of that statistic. Because technically, I actually just had a part-time job that I quit, but technically I'm one of those men who have exited the workforce. And yeah, hopefully these anecdotes, if there's any detective economists out there, you can use this video to help solve your mystery. But I'll just paint you a little picture. And I want to set the scene too with my previous employment, because I think it's gonna tie this picture in together, and it's gonna make a lot more sense. So at the place that I worked at previously, I worked there right out of college, and it started off as just a decent paying job right out of school. I was actually technically in school when I got it. And over time, I worked my way to the top and became manager. And so at that point, I was, just being observant. And I looked around and thought, well, hell, like all of these people, they seem to have, nice cars, they own houses. Their life seems to be like, I can kind of just stay here and I'll be on track to get what they got, right? That's kind of the conclusion that, one would come to seeing that picture. But what ended up happening was not that at all. So I didn't get promoted to manager until, it was a little bit later. I'd already gotten divorced from my first wife, which that was a hell of a time. I ended up living in a coworker's room, and the rents are so high and shitty around here that I ended up staying there for just way longer than I wanted to. Then I finally moved out when I got this promotion, And, you know, at first I was, you know, pretty stoked, and it was $66,000 a year that they, you know, gave to me, this promotion. I was like, okay, that's, you know, it's a lot better than I was making before. And, you know, I'm still hopeful that if I, you know, stay on this path, that I'm going to be where the rest of these people were. And I think it was maybe a year into it. I don't even know if it was a year into it, but somehow I'd come across an old payroll record that had payroll, because I used to do the payroll for my department and just kind of look at the numbers of the people that I would hire. Well, anyway, I came across the payroll with my old bosses, my former bosses' pay information on it. And I came to find out that he made $20,000, I think it was a little bit more, but roughly $20,000 a year more in the same position that I was in now. And needless to say, I did not find that information very pleasing. And so at that point, I was like, holy shit, you know, like I need to figure something out. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna, you know, try to approach this tactfully, diplomatically. I'm gonna demonstrate to them, you know, that I bring just as much value as, you know, my previous boss did. And so I tried to put together, you know, productivity numbers. I tried to show them how utilizing these automation scripts that I had written in JavaScript had saved them, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of a year in labor hours. I showed them that we were processing things faster. I had all these metrics, all these statistics, and I started bringing it up to the owners. And what was interesting was it was just not received, right? And so at first it was mainly kind of just ignored and, you know, kind of pat on the back. And eventually I did get a raise, and I believe it was $72,000 a year, or maybe 75, but still well under what was, you know, I think my previous boss was making like $87,000 a year, which in like 2019 wasn't half bad. Fast forward 2024, even that's kind of, you know, paltry numbers. And so I still was holding on to this hope that, you know, I still see these other department heads, and, you know, they all have houses, they have cars and all this stuff. And if I just, you know, put my head down and show them that I'm a good employee, you know, I'll get that too. And it was just a series of these demoralizing situations that ended up happening. And I remember just being more and more discouraged every time I would go into work, because then I would also hire new hires from college, and we would start these people out at like, you know, I think some people were $16 an hour. Most of them were maybe $18 an hour, something like that. And I would think to myself, man, if I can barely get by and I make the most out of anyone in the department, how the hell are these people, you know, surviving? And obviously they all had roommates. And I remember just looking at this situation thinking, this is so fucked up. Like, we have all these young adults who are working in, you know, it's a job. It was a somewhat serious, you know, career as a photography studio. There's other people that, you know, do that professionally and they have a family, right? Like, it's not we weren't working at a fast food joint. And I remember just looking around and thinking, like, none of these people are ever they're all gonna die or live with roommates until they find some other job, you know? And so, not to drag this one out too long, what ended up happening was I got laid off. And then that was around, I think it was around like September or so, before the pandemic. And so then the next several months I spent looking for a job. And this part of the story too is just classic, because I think this really exemplifies why so many men, at least for me, this is why I don't even put effort into looking for a job. So I started looking for jobs, and I was thinking, I'm going to be like somewhere in the, the digital kind of web tech space, right? And we have a fairly large company over here. I'm not going to disclose who they are, but they employ quite a few people, and they have some decent job openings. And I came across one. It was something like a content marketing manager. I don't know, something that you essentially are editing HTML web templates and email marketing, and something that's not that difficult to figure out, really. If we want to be honest about it, it's if you're relatively smart, if you have an IQ above room temperature, you can figure out how to do this thing, and you're working within a department of people, so it's not like you're doing this whole thing yourself anyway. And so anyway, I apply for this job. Among others, I'm applying to tons of other jobs, and I think I got, at first I got this interview. This one's hilarious too. I got this interview with this company over here, and they were like, "Oh wow, we're super interested. We like that you have photography experience, because we want to do, upgrade our photos, and then we're thinking you could do some stuff on the website. You could do a little bit of graphic design. You could do, some HTML, some, front-end CSS stuff." And then came the offer, and they're like, "Okay, we can offer you $44,000 a year." And I remember just getting the offer and thinking, I don't know I don't even know if I could rent a room for $44,000 a year. Granted, at this point, I'm already in my 30s. I have a daughter, and I remember just thinking to myself, what are you talking about? $44,000 a year. Like, where are you looking? Have you gone on, Zillow or Craigslist or anywhere? Have you looked around? And it was just like the level of out of touch that some of these people are, it kind of just boggles the mind, because you think to yourself, who in the hell is going to be able to survive? I guess if you're a dual income family, yeah, you can one person makes $40,000 a year, the other person makes 50. But if you're a single guy or girl and you have a kid, you're not surviving on 40 grand a year. It's just not going to happen, right? So I move on, and anyway, I get this interview offer with this company. And this company this story is just gold, because at first I'm excited. They're like, it's some recruiting manager that's over in San Diego or something. And she's like, "We looked at your resume and we think that your qualifications with blah, 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 blah. We would like to set up a phone interview." I'm like, "Great, let's set up a phone interview." So do the phone interview. The interview goes well. It was with I think it was a local gal that works here. Phone interview goes great. It was like a Zoom call. And she says, "Okay, now we want to move on to the next step, which is our, I don't remember what they call it, skills assessment." It's essentially a glorified IQ test is what it is, because it's 4 time, it's questions on your analytical ability, verbal, mathematics, spatial awareness, where they have the shapes and the pattern recognition, that sort of thing. So anyway, they give me the name of the test, and I can't even remember the name of the test. I kind of stripped it from my memory. And they're like, "You can take a practice test here." So I take a practice test. I bomb the practice test. I take it timed, just the way that you do. Bomb this practice test, right? So I'm like, shit, I need to brush up on this stuff. And I know that the questions aren't really that hard. It's just, I need to get back in the mode of doing this stuff. So I download this like math app where I'm doing 2-digit, 3-digit addition, subtraction, multiplication constantly. I'm practicing all these, little math quizzes and spatial awareness quizzes, these pattern recognition ones, and I just study the hell out of this thing, right? So I'm just going hard. I think it was like 2 weeks that I had to prepare. So for 2 weeks, I'm just going full bore, like this is my job. I'd spent I don't even want to count how many hours on this thing. So I'm just going for it, right? Because I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna, nail this freaking test, get this job. I think this job paid like close to 80 grand a year. So it wasn't great, but it was gonna be at least, good. I was gonna be somewhat satisfied and be, still stuck in this miserable existence where I can where I can't buy a home, but at least I'll have the security knowing I work at this, shitty job doing marketing for this giant company and, maybe move on from there or get some sort of raise or promotion. So that's the way I looked at it. So anyway, I'm studying for this thing. I take the assessment, and when I do it, I was 100 times better than that first one. I get through, I think I answered all the questions. There's maybe a couple I didn't know. And then it come the results. The results come in, I pass. They don't tell you what you got. I don't know why they don't tell you, but they don't. And so now there was another interview, and this one was going to be with, I think this was another Zoom interview. They're like, okay, we want to do another Zoom interview. And I was like, okay, one more interview. So I do that one. Then they say, okay, now the next step is, dude, the amount of freaking interviews that I did for this thing, it was ridiculous. Like the amount of time I spent on this whole process was, you would think that I was interviewing for the, CEO of some grand company or the president. I mean, it was just nuts. So I get through that next one, and I get invited for a panel interview on site. And this panel interview it's a series of other interviews that I think cumulatively took like 4 or 5 hours. So I show up on site, I meet, I don't even remember who I meet. I meet some woman, she takes me into a room, and then I meet some more people. And then we talk and they ask questions, and then I go and meet some more people. Then they had it all like itineraried out. It was one of those kind of modern tech companies where they have like the whole cafeteria food court type thing. So we go to the food court, and then I have a lunch casual meeting with some other people. Then after lunch, we do another one. Anyway, this whole process, I think it's 4 or 5 hours. Finally done. Now I'm sitting and waiting, and I'm thinking to myself, I think it went pretty good. I don't remember, bombing on any part of the interview. I think it, well, what else could they ask for, right? So a week, I think, goes by, and then finally I hear, like, we regret to inform you that we have selected another person that is a better fit with our company. And I remember just reading that email and thinking to myself, you assholes. Like, I just wasted, it was literally, I think, a month, if not over a month of my time studying for all this shit, doing all these panel interviews for this job that's not even, it's not like the platinum job. It's not the highest level job that they have. It's like a mid-level job. The amount of time I wasted, and then they just, sorry. And this part's hilarious too, because I actually had a friend that worked there, and so I asked this woman, I was like, do you have any insight onto, why maybe they didn't hire me? And she's like, yeah, the freaking kicker. Yeah, they decided to go with another candidate because they thought you were a little bit overqualified. And I remember after that, I just lost it. I was just like, are you These people, they want you to do all these damn assessment tests, have all these qualifications, these freaking panel interviews, and then they tell you that you're overqualified. You're thinking to yourself, I just want the damn job so I can get the money. Like, I don't care if I'm overqualified, fine. I remember just after that thinking like, what the hell is the point? And so shortly after that, I actually worked at the startup company, that's like a whole different story. But not long after, so I started working at the startup company, and then not long after, and it was kind of like under the table, mostly sweat equity type thing. And then the pandemic hits, right? And at the startup, I just worked through the pandemic. Like that's the other part that was hilarious. They were talking like, all these people are, sitting, not doing it. I worked my ass off throughout the whole pandemic because we were rebuilding this office space. So I was in there every day, freaking wiring the place, doing drywall, re-epoxying the floor, grinding concrete, doing computer design work. I was doing everything in there every damn day. There was no quarantining that I was doing. We had like a small team of 3, and me and the other guy, we thought the whole thing was, I just immediately thought like, this is nonsense. Like you're gonna tell me that you're gonna prevent a whole country from passing around essentially what's a cold, really, by wearing masks? It's like, when have people ever been able to stop a cold? And I remember telling the other guy, I was like, you do realize like everybody's just going to get sick and it's going to get passed around, right? Like that's going to be the end result. And oh, well, we have to try to slow the curve. We can't let the hospitals get overwhelmed and and I was like, okay, well, you guys go ahead and flatten the curve, but I'm going to be predicting right now that will not work out. Every single one of us is probably going to get sick, and there's not really anything we can do about it. So there's no point in even attempting to fight it. If I get sick, so be it. So anyway, that's a different tangent. And so that whole freaking application process, like this is what is hilarious. These people that think like, what is the incentive for young or relatively young men if their job hunting experience is anything like mine? What the hell is the incentive to be out looking for jobs? Like I actually do work, I'm not employed in one of those places because I got the message. Like I got the message loud and clear. I don't know how many resumes I've sent out. I don't know how many interviews I've done, and I get it, right? Like I get it. I'm not going anywhere. There is no way that I'm going to be working for you and going to be able to afford a house or a family or anything like that. Like it's just not going to happen. Or I have to land some job that's, 140K right off the bat, which also isn't going to happen. So I get the message. I'm not wanted, not needed. They don't want to pay me. So I'll figure out my own thing. And so what I started doing, and maybe this is what the other men are doing, is I was like, okay, these are the skills I have. I can fix stuff. I can make things. So I'm going to start fixing things. I'm going to start making things and using every skill I have to make money. Because obviously trying to work in the tech industry is a joke. It's a freaking joke. And yeah, maybe, I don't know, if you live in like Silicon Valley, it's still worth it, or you're a developer. But that was the other thing. But yeah, so that was the other thing. Yeah, because I know a little bit of programming, but I just thought to myself, like, I just don't want to be a programmer for 8 hours a day. And at this time, I think I was watching Josh Fluke's channel, and he was kind of talking about a lot of the same kind of bullshit, just this corporate culture of just this, it's all about the company culture, and it honestly just made me so sick of it. It's like every time I would go on LinkedIn, these job titles that people would have, it's just hilarious. Like global product manager, just these ridiculous titles in the way that people would word things, where everybody's these, crazy professionals. And I was just so sick of it. It's like, maybe I need to dress up my profile and make it sound all this lead content creator, head, blah, blah. But it's like, do I really want to do that? It's like, do I really want to do that? And so that whole LinkedIn kind of culture turned me off so much. It's like, man, I just want to I just want to work and make enough money to get by. It's like the overqualification for some of these jobs. I mean, the freaking arrogance of some of these jobs. These jobs are not that hard. They're not that hard. Granted, okay, I'll give you that there's, some jobs that exist out there where you need, years of specialized training, but I could bet you that 95% of these jobs, you give me 2 weeks of training and I will be able to do it. I can guarantee you that. I can freaking guarantee you that, because they're not that difficult. The jobs are not that hard. They're not. I don't care if it's a super technical software. They're not that fucking hard. I remember just even the programming department. Like, I knew some JavaScript and I would ask some of the guys to write. It's like there was 2 guys in the whole programming department that actually knew how to program. The other ones, I was probably on the same level as they were, just by going through free code camp and the shit I picked up in community college back when I was in high school. Like, that's the part that would just piss me off, is you see just the arrogance of some of these companies with their, bachelor's, master's degree. We want 8 years of blah, blah, blah experience. It's just like, you guys are so full of yourselves. Just so full of themselves. And what was hilarious too is I remember applying for, I would see this freaking job ad always pop up, and it's like, always hiring junior developers, no experience needing, will train. And I remember like, oh great, like I already have experience, so I have a leg up, like I could easily do this. And I remember applying for this, and then every time I would apply, it would say, oh, we're not currently, like, you don't meet our required requirements or whatever. Please, have a nice life, basically is what they would say. And I remember just thinking like, oh my gosh, like I can't do this. I'm not going to do this anymore. It's like after a certain amount of sent out resumes and these bullshit interviews, it's like, here's the freaking Sherlock Holmes Scooby-Doo mystery for you guys. The men are fucking sick of it. That's what they're sick of it. And they either figured out some other shit. They started like a pressure washing business or whatever, an Etsy store, or they're doing something with AI, or they're doing carpentry, or they're doing the trades or something, because they're so sick of just the bullshit. Like, how hard do you want to make it so that guys can just work? It's like, that's the part that would drive me nuts, is people too, my parents aren't boomers because we're from Russia, so they're not a part of that demographic. They're in that generation, but they're not a part of that demographic. And they actually, this is the hilarious part. My parents actually gave me the right advice. They told me not to work for someone, and I should have taken their advice a long time ago and never gotten into the corporate world. I finally now get it, what the hell they were talking about. But yeah, this advice of just, oh, well, if you just keep trying, and if you're willing to work hard, the money will come. And it's like, I remember for months just being willing to work, thinking like, I want to work. Like, can I just have the damn job that even if I'm overqualified for? I remember applying to some of these knowing like, okay, I just literally need this job just because I need to work, right? No, none, no replies, no anything. So after a point, it's like, the guys are sick of it. The men are sick of it. You know, I think it's said like something like 7 million. I don't know. I'm surprised that it's not more, because honestly, I don't know what the hell is wrong. Sometimes I would think too, is it the name? Is it because I have, you know, this name that I get ignored? I wonder if I had just like an American name, if they would answer the damn resume, because sometimes I would think like, how hard is it to just get a goddamn job if you want to work? Like, I want to work. Why can I not just find a damn job? Like applying for all these, you know, freaking poll inspector, garbage collector, these bullshit city jobs. Oh my gosh. So if there's any economists, which I highly doubt, but if there's any economists that happen to come across this video and you're looking to solve the mystery, these geniuses out here, is because when you make it so damn hard to find a job because you're asking for these fucking master's degree in God knows what just to do this elementary job, that these jobs are not that hard. They're not that hard. They aren't that hard. I can tell you with 100% certainty they are not that hard. You do not need all those qualifications. I guarantee you 1 to 2 weeks of good training, and any person who is relatively quick can pick up whatever the hell it is you're doing. Granted, aside from high-level programming or something super technical, but I'm saying the majority of these fucking marketing jobs, they're not difficult. They are not hard. Okay, so that's my little rant on that. But it's society at large. It's just hilarious to me, because it's like you make it so freaking hard for people to work. It's like, how hard is it right now? Can you find a job in California, just a regular mid-level job, buy a house, a car, and support a family? No, you can't do that, right? So it's like, as a man, like whether people want to hear it or not, the primary reason that men do anything, why we're motivated, why we have a drive, this is going to be a huge shocker. I know to some people, it's going to be just a shocker, but it's women. It's women, right? And so when part of society is pitting men against women, it's everybody's independent, no one wants to have kids, and that's the hilarious part too. I remember at this work, it's like I would hire actually a lot of women, and I remember after being there for a while, they were all just freaking miserable. You know, the smart ones that worked at that company, you know, they were married, they had kids, and they switched to part-time. Those were the smart ones. And the miserable ones, I remember in the department, would just sit there, and you could tell that they hated it, but they had this kind of expectation that like, oh, but if the job just became, you know, this and this, and we got to be more creative, and we got to do this, then it's going to be so fulfilling. And they had this this idealization. It's like the amount that people expect from a job is just ridiculous, you know. And society, I'm going to just say it, they flat out lied to women. They told women, hey, focus on your career. You're going to find a fulfilling career. You're going to find yourself. It's a bunch of bullshit. It's bullshit. The smart women at the company, I remember the smart ones, they went to part-time, they had kids, and they stopped spending their whole day at work. That's just the truth of it. And the ones that worked full-time were miserable as all hell. And so what the hell else do you expect when you remove the motivation for men, when it's like a long-term love, you know, relationship or marriage is no longer on the table? The places that they do apply, you get rejected and they pay you dog shit. What do you think is going to happen to all the guys? You think they're just going to stick around and just keep applying at your ridiculous freaking job postings? And that's the other hilarious part, is some of these companies, they put out these job listings to boost the credibility of the company, as if they're always looking and always hiring, but they're not actually hiring for any of these positions. It's hilarious, right? It's great. Oh, anyway, I think I'm done on the rant for today, but yeah, that's where the men are. Scooby-Doo mystery solved. They're sick of it.